I came home to an empty house, only to find my wife's tablet left behind, revealing messages that shattered my world. She was cheating with my business rival, planning our demise. The late October sun filtered through the large windows of my office, casting a golden glow across the polished surface of my desk. I leaned back in my chair, reviewing the last contract of the day. It was another milestone for my consulting firm, a lucrative deal that would secure a major client 15 years ago. I started with little more than a termination and an old laptop. Now my company occupied 3 floors of a downtown high-rise. My phone was interrupting my thoughts. A text from Derek, my wife's business mentor, flashed on the screen. Working late again. To my agent extraordinaire, Marilyn Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Rebecca says, "You must not know how to delegate." The message felt like a jabbed ad. Eric had been a thorn in my side ever since Rebecca introduced him into our lives. 6 months ago, something about him always felt off. But Rebecca brushed off my concerns, calling them jealousy. "Kurt, just finishing up. I'll be home in 30. No response lately." That had become her norm. On the drive home, I passed the small office building where I started my business. The sight of it reminded me of long nights and early mornings of sacrifices Rebecca and I had made together to build this life. She used to be proud of me back when we were chasing dreams side by side. But Ray's influence had changed things. He filled her head with stories of instant wealth, exotic vacations, and a lifestyle that didn't align with the steady, calculated growth I valued. When I pulled into the driveway of our colonial-style home, the house was dark. No lights greeted me. No dinner smells wafted from the kitchen. The silence was oppressive. Something felt off. Loosening my tie, I headed for my study, hoping to shake off the unease. My footsteps echoed on the hardwood floors as I entered the room. It looked exactly as I'd left it, except for one thing: Rebecca's tablet. She never left it out, and she guarded it fiercely these days. Seeing it sitting on my desk felt wrong, like an uninvited guest had invaded my space. The screen's notification light blinked steadily. I approached it, curiosity and apprehension battling within me. My finger hovered over the screen before I unlocked it, surprised to find it didn't require a password. Rebecca was meticulous about her privacy, often changing her passwords, adding new layers of security. The open message thread made my stomach drop. Looking stunning in that dress. "Rebecca," the message, "read, your husband's probably still at his little office, counting pennies, while we enjoy the finer things." The C-ender was Derek. A photo accompanied the text. Rebecca in a sleek black dress I'd never seen posing against the backdrop of what looked like a Lucktail hotel suite. The timestamp was from 2 hours ago. Her reply was below it. "You wouldn't know what to do with a woman in a dress like this. To my agent extraordinaire, Marilyn Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." All those years of playing it safe have made him boring. My grip tightened on the tablet as I scrolled up more photos, more messages, each one a fresh wound. "When are you going to leave that small-time businessman of yours? You deserve someone who can keep up with your taste soon." She'd replied, "To my agent extraordinaire, Marilyn Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." Watching him scramble to please me has its own entertainment value. The front door opened downstairs. The sound of heels clicked on the marble floor, accompanied by the rustle of shopping bags. Rebecca's voice called out, "To my agent extraordinaire, Marilyn Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." "Your car's in the driveway. Are you home already?" I stayed seated, waiting. The footsteps drew closer until she appeared in the doorway wearing the same black dress. From the photo, my chest tightened at the sight of her, the physical proof of her deception. "There you are," she said, her smile faltering, when she noticed the tablet in my hands. "What are you doing with my tablet?" The better question. My voice steady, but cold, is what were you doing with Derek in a hotel room 2 hours ago? Her face paled, but only for a moment. Then her expression hardened, her posture shifting to one of defiance. So now you're spying on me. Her voice sharp, going through my private messages. You left it on my desk. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Setting the tablet down with deliberate care unlocked with your affair on full display. Was that a mistake, Rebecca? Or did you want me to see what you've been doing behind my back? She let out a short bitter laugh. Maybe I did. Maybe I'm tired of pretending that this. She gestured around the room is enough. I stared at her, struggling to process the magnitude of her betrayal. Enough. I echoed the word, tasting bitter on my tongue. I built all of this from nothing. Everything we have is safe. Predictable, she interrupted, her voice. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Boring. Do you know what Derek did last weekend? He flew me to Paris on a private jet. When's the last time you took me anywhere that didn't involve a business conference? I stood slowly, my height giving me the advantage of looking down at her. So that's what this is about. Private jets in Paris. It's about being appreciated. She snapped, her eyes flashing. Derek understands what a woman like me deserves. He doesn't hesitate to spend thousands on dinner on jewelry on, making me feel special. Why you? Her voice dripping with disdain. Analyze every purchase. Like we're still that struggling couple in a one-bedroom apartment. The room felt like it was closing in around me, but I refused to let her see how deeply her words cut that struggling couple. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My tone measured, built something real. Everything in this house. Every dollar in our accounts I earned through hard work and smart decisions. Not by throwing money around to impress whoever caught my eye. Don't you dare act superior. Stepping closer. I spent 15 years watching. You choose the safe path. Always talking about long-term stability. When we could have been living. My voice was sharp. You mean leeching off someone else's wealth? Her lips curved into a cruel smile. All those trips. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Were with my sisters. Should I tell you what I was really doing? How Derek would stop. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Cutting her off with a raised hand. I don't need the details of how far you've fallen. Her smile faded, replaced by anger. Fallen. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I've risen. I'm with someone who sees my with someone who doesn't make me justify every purchase or question every expense. No, I said, my voice low. He just expects you to justify it in other ways. Doesn't he? Her flinch was slight. But I saw it. She recovered quickly. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Her eyes narrowing. You know, nothing about Derek. He's twice the man you'll ever be at that moment. The sound of the front door opening interrupted her tirade. Quick footsteps thundered up the stairs. Mom, Dad. Our daughter's voice echoed down the hall. What's with all the yelling? I could hear you from the driveway. Derek appeared in the doorway. Her expression, a mix of confusion and concern. She carried the air of expensive. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Designer clothes. A luxury handbag. But suddenly it all made sense. The shopping FREZE. The new car, she said. She bought with her part-time job savings. All of it pointed back to Derek. Derek stood in the doorway. her designer handbag slung over her shoulder, her gaze shifting between Rebecca and me. Her face was flushed with the unmistakable glow of someone stepping into a situation they didn't fully understand, but were ready to defend. "What's going on?" Her voice sharp with the confidence only the young and uninformed thumb can wield before I could respond. Rebecca moved toward her, transforming seamlessly into the picture of maternal vulnerability. Her shoulders sagged. Her expression crumbled into one of hurt and desperation, and her voice trembled as she said, "Oh, sweetheart, I'm so glad you're here. Your father's being absolutely horrible." The performance was so convincing that for a moment, I almost doubted the evidence I'd seen with my own eyes. "What did he do?" Derek asked, crossing her arms. "He went through my private messages," Rebecca continued, tears forming at the corners of her eyes, but refusing to fall. "He's attacking me over something so small. A tiny indiscretion. A tiny indiscretion. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." My voice rising. "Is that what we're calling? Months of lying secret trips and another man. Thing your lifestyle." Derek's face turned red. "What are you talking about?" Mom said. "She's been networking, making connections for her business networking." I repeated, my tone flat. I reached for the tablet still on the desk, and held it up. "Is that what she told you she was doing in Paris with Derek, or during those business meetings at F-star hotels?" Derek's flush deepened, but she held her ground. "Why are you spying on her? That's so trolling. Successful. People have connections. At least her friends know how to live." I took a steadying breath. "Derek, do you even hear yourself? I've been building this business for 15 years. Every dollar in this house, every opportunity you've had came from hard work, not shortcuts or handouts." Derek's bitter laugh cut through the tension. "Hard work? You mean being cheap and hoarding money? You're so obsessed with long-term playing that you forgot how to live." Meanwhile, and Derek, stop. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." But she pushed on. "Mom has friends who take her to Paris. Her life isn't stuck in some boring routine. And do you know how embarrassing it is to have a dad like you? Everyone else's parents drive luxury cars and go on extravagant trips. What do you do? Teach me about budgeting and investments." Ike, it's the best thing ever. And I taught you those things. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." My voice hard, because I wanted you to understand the value of money, the importance of working for what you want value. She shot back, her voice rising. "You mean counting every penny while life passes you by, my friends? Dads don't do that. They don't make them work. Part-time jobs. We use budget apps." I stepped forward, forcing myself to stay calm. "Everything I've done, everything I've taught you, has been for your future, to help you build something lasting. Something. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." Derek shook her head. Don't. You're pathetic. You should have made Mom happy, but you couldn't even do that." Her words stung more than I wanted to admit. She pulled out her phone, her fingers flying across the screen there. "I blocked you on everything. I don't want to see your face or hear your voice ever again." I stared at her, feeling a mix of disbelief and anger. Rebecca stood off to the side, her expression carefully composed. She wasn't crying anymore. She wasn't even trying to stop Derek. She was letting her finish the job for her. "Come on, sweetheart," Rebecca said, wrapping an arm around Derek's shoulders. "We don't have to stay here. Derek already offered us rooms at his estate, while we sort things out." I laughed bitterly. "His estate. So that's the plan. Rebecca, move in with your lover, and drag Ada into that mess." "Rebecca," Smil was sharp and triumphant. Better his estate than this prison of mediocrity. You never understood what I needed. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. What we needed. I turned to Derek. Derek, think about what you're saying, what you're doing. Ray doesn't care about you. He's buying your loyalty with luxury. At least he knows how to live. Derek said. Her voice. Cold Mom deserves someone who can give her the life she wants. And I. She hesitated before driving the final mail-in. I deserve a better father. The words hung in the air heavily and irreversible. Rebecca picked up the tea and walked toward the door. She paused, looking back at me with a smirk that I would never forget. Derek was right about you all along. You're just not enough man to keep a woman like me satisfied. In any way. Her words were a slap, but I stayed silent. There was nothing left to say. I followed them to the window, watching as they left. Rebecca's car, the one I'd given her for our anniversary, pulled out of the driveway and disappeared into the fading light. The silence that filled the house now was different. It wasn't the stillness of an empty home, waiting to be filled. It was the kind of silence that followed an irrevocable loss. I turned back to the desk, my gaze falling on the tablet. Rebecca had forgotten in her haste to leave a new message. Notification blinked on the screen. Ray's name appeared at the top. Did the little man finally discover our secret? Darling, don't worry. Your suite is ready. Merritt will love the shopping in the neighborhood. I clenched my fist, but forced myself to remain calm. Picking up my phone, I scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I needed. A familiar voice answered after the first ring. Wilson and Associates. The man said smoothly. Daniel Wilson. Speaking. Daniel, it's Alex Thompson. I need your services. First thing. Tomorrow morning. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Personal or business matter. Divorce. My voice was sharp and clear. My wife has been having an affair with Ray Grow. Yes, the real estate mogul. There was a pause as Wilson registered the gravity of my request. Understood. Let's meet at 8. And assume you want to move quickly to protect your assets. That's exactly what I want. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I want everything documented. Every penny. Rebecca spent every gift claimed was for work. Item I bought for her. Or Derek. I want it all. Accounted for. It'll be done. I ended the call and moved to the wall. Safe behind the abstract painting Rebecca had always hated inside were meticulous. Kept financial records, including proof of Rebecca's questionable spending. I had always been methodical, detailed, prepared. Rebecca once ridiculed me for those qualities. Now they were going to save me. I opened my computer, logging into my bank accounts to gather additional evidence. As I worked, an email notification appeared at the corner of the screen. It was from Derek's university investment account. Subject: Notice of withdrawal. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Pursuing more immediate opportunities. The email confirmed what I already suspected. Derek had chosen Ray's path over mine. He had promised her the fast track to wealth and success, and she had followed him willingly. The weight of the betrayal was crushing, but I didn't let it break me. I straightened in my chair, my resolve solidifying with each passing moment. Rebecca and Derek wanted their freedom, their chance to live with. Without me, I would give it to them, but not on their terms. The next morning dawned cold and clear. The kind of autumn day that made the world feel sharp and unforgiving. I arrived at Wilson and Associates promptly. At 8, walking into the sleek, modern office that matched Daniel Wilson's reputation as the most ruthless attorney in the city. He met me in a private conference room. His demeanor, professional, but calculating. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Gesturing for me to sit. Let's get started. I handed him a file containing the financial records. I'd spent hours compiling. This is everything I've gathered so far. To my agent extraordinaire, Mylan Noban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Joint accounts. Personal spending gifts. I want every dollar she's taken. Accounted for. Wilson flipped through the documents, nodding as he read. This is thorough. Glancing up at me. It'll make things much easier. I assume you're prepared for this to get ugly. I'm counting on it. To my agent extraordinaire, Mylan Noban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My voice firm. She thinks she's entitled to half of everything I've built. But she's wrong. I earned this. She betrayed me. I'm not letting her walk away with more than she deserves. Wilson leaned back in his chair. His sharp eyes, studying me and your daughter. The mention of Derek stung more than I wanted to admit. Sheck chosen her side. I said flatly, Ray's been buying her loyalty for months. She made it clear last night where she stands. Wilson nodded again, making a note on his legal pad. Understood. Let's talk strategy. By the time I left the office, my plan was in motion. Wilson would file for divorce. Immediately, citing infidelity and flirty. He would secure an injunction to freeze the joint accounts and ensure Rebecca couldn't access any of the business assets. It was a clean, calculated approach, the kind of precision I'd built my career as I drove home. My phone buzzed with a notification. It was from Rebecca's subject. Let's keep this civil message. Ray's lawyer will contact yours tomorrow. Let's agree on a fair settlement for everyone's sake. I deleted the email without responding. Rebecca was playing her hand, trying to appear reasonable, while angling for as much as she could get. I wasn't going to fall for it. When I got home, I went straight to my study, locking the door behind me. The house felt emptier than ever, the silence pressing in on me for a moment. I let myself feel the weight of everything. The betrayal, the loss, the anger, but only for a moment. Then I got to work. I spent hours going through every record, every document that could strengthen my case. Hotel receipts, credit card statements, messages from Rebecca's tablet that I backed up to my computer by the time I finished. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting the room in shadows. My phone buzzed again, and this time it was a message from Derek. Message. Mom says you'll probably try to cut off my credit cards. Ray told us. Spite never looks good to a judge. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I stared at the screen. The words, twisting something inside me. Derek's loyalty to Ray, and Rebecca wasn't surprising, but it still hurt. She had no idea how deep their betrayal went, how much they had taken from me, not just financially, but emotionally. She had thrown me away for promises of luxury and convenience. I didn't reply instead. I turned off my phone and stepped out of the study, heading for the kitchen. I needed a moment to clear my head to think about something other than the mess my life had become. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that felt heavy, almost oppressive. Every room held memories of a life I thought was solid, unshakable. The dinners Rebecca and I had cooked together, the late-night talks about our plans for the future, the family game, nights with Derek. All of it felt distant now, like it belonged to someone else's life. I poured myself a glass of water, leaning against the counter, as I stared out the window. The backyard was bathed in moonlight. The garden Rebecca had once loved, now overgrown and neglected. It was a stark reminder of how much had changed the following week. The divorce proceedings began in earnest. Wilson moved quickly, filing the necessary paperwork. And no, Ying Rebecca's lawyer, he also subpoenas for Ray's financial records, ensuring we could track every dollar he spent on Rebecca and Derek. The response from Rebecca's camp was swift. Her lawyer, a polished woman named Devlin Grant, sent over a counter-proposal that was laughably one-sided. She wanted half of the business, full custody of Derek and a monthly alimony payment. That was more than generous. Wilson barely glanced at it before shredding it in his office. They're testing the waters, trying to see how much you're willing to give. I'm not giving them anything. They didn't turn. To my agent extraordinaire, Myelin Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. She wants to start over with Derek, but chick not doing it on my dime. Wilson smirked. Good. Let's remind them who they're dealing with as the days turned into weeks. The battle escalated. Rebecca and Derek played the hand in the court of public opinion, leaking stories to the society pages about how I was a controlling husband who stifled Rebecca's ambition. They painted Ray as the savior, who had given her the freedom she deserved. I countered with cold, hard evidence photos of Rebecca and Ray together, time-stamped messages detailing their affair, financial records showing how Eric had funneled money into Rebecca's accounts. It wasn't just a divorce anymore. It was a war. And then there was Derek. She hadn't contacted me since that first message, and I hadn't reached out to her. I knew she was living with Rebecca and Derek, enjoying the lifestyle they provided, but I also knew it wouldn't last. Ray's generosity was conditional, and once he decided they were no longer useful, he would cut them off. Part of me wanted to intervene to protect Derek from the fallout, but another part of me knew she had to learn the hard way she had chosen her side, and now she would have to live with the consequences. One evening, as I was reviewing some documents in my study, my phone buzzed with a new email. It was from Derek's university subject. Withdrawal. Confirmation. Message. Your request to withdraw from the graduate investment program has been processed. Funds will be dispersed to the requested account. I clasped the email, my chest tightening. Derek had promised her an easy path and she had abandoned the foundation I tried to give her. I couldn't stop her from making her choices, but I wouldn't shield her from the consequences. The next morning, Wilson called with an update. We've got everything we need to make our case airtight. Rebecca's spending habits, Ray's financial support. It's all documented. They're not walking away with anything close to what they're asking for. Good. To my agent extraordinaire, Myelin Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Let's finish this. As the court date approached, I felt a strange sense of clarity. Rebecca and Derek had both betrayed me, but they no longer had power over me. I had my business, my integrity, and a future that wasn't tied to their selfish choices. Rebecca and Ray could have their illusion of luxury, but I would have something real, something they couldn't take away. The morning of the first court hearing was grey and overcast. Fitting for the occasion, I arrived at the courthouse, early dressed in a sharp suit that projected confidence and control. Wilson met me at the steps, a thick binder tucked under his arm. Ready. His tone calm, but firm, more than Ray. To my agent extraordinaire, Myelin Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. The courtroom buzzed with quiet tension. Rebecca was already seated at her table, her lawyer, Evelyn, beside her. She wore a tailored navy dress, her makeup flawless, but there was an edge to her expression that betrayed her unease. Derek was notably absent, likely avoiding the scrutiny this case was bound to bring. Derek wasn't there. Either part of me was relieved. Another part couldn't shake the hurt of her absence. When the judge entered the room, fell silent. The proceedings began with the usual formalities, but it didn't take long for things to heat up. Evelyn opened with a statement, painting Rebecca as a victim, a woman stifled by an overly controlled husband, forced to seek emotional and financial support elsewhere. Wilson let her finish without interruption. When it was his turn, he stood and spoke with the precision of a seasoned litigator. Your Honor, the evidence will show that Mrs. Thompson's actions were not the result of emotional neglect or control, but a deliberate betrayal. Motivated by greed, she engaged in an extramarital affair, siphoned from joint accounts and accepted gifts and financial support from her lover Ray Dequa, all while presenting herself as a loyal spouse. He moved to the evidence stable where an array of documents and photographs was laid out, with hotel receipts, credit card statements, and messages, corroborating her actions. Furthermore, we can demonstrate that Mrs. Thompson's behavior has been detrimental to Mr. Thompson's business reputation and financial stability. Evelyn Obi objected. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Calling the evidence an invasion of privacy and questioning its relevance. But Wilson countered, smoothly, pointing out the financial misconduct and its direct impact on the division of assets. By the time the session adjourned for the day, Rebecca's confess had cracked. She avoided looking at me as we left the courtroom. Her lawyer, putting her aside for what I assumed was damage control. I felt a grim sense of satisfaction. The truth was on my side, and I was determined to see it through that evening. I returned home and found myself sitting in my study, staring at a family photo on the bookshelf. It was from years ago, taken during a rare family vacation. Rebecca was smiling her arm around Derek, who looked impossibly young. We'd been happy then, or at least I thought we were. Now that image felt like a relic of another life, a life that had been torn apart by ambition and betrayal. In the weeks that followed, the battle continued. Rebecca's team fought hard, but they cowed to refute the evidence Wilson had meticulously compiled. The joint accounts were frozen, Ray's financial support was exposed, and the court began to lean in my favor. Rebecca's requests for alimony and a large share of the business were denied, leaving her with far less than she'd anticipated. It was a small victory, but it didn't erase the deeper wounds. Derek's silence remained deafening. She hadn't reached out since her initial message, and I hadn't tried to contact her. I knew she was still living with Derek and Rebecca, enjoying the perks of his wealth, but I also knew it wouldn't last. Ray's generosity came with strings, and once those strings were cut, they'd find themselves with nothing. One afternoon, as I was reviewing some new business contract, Reed called with an update. We've secured a favorable settlement. Rebecca will receive a modest portion of the assets, enough to cover her immediate needs, but far from the windfall she expected. Custody arrangements for Derek are moot, since she's an adult and Ray's financial involvement has been thoroughly documented. He won't be able to interfere any further. I let out a slow breath, relief washing over me. Good. Let's finalize it. There's one more thing. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Rebecca's lawyer reached out. She wants to meet with you privately. I frowned why she didn't say, but it's likely an attempt to negotiate something outside of court. My advice: decline. Let the process finish cleanly. I considered it for a moment before, shaking my head. No, I'll meet with her. I want to hear what she has to say. We arranged to meet at a small cafe downtown, a neutral space that offered little comfort. Rebecca arrived a few minutes after. I did dressed impeccably, as always, but there was a tightness around her eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. As she slid into the chair across from me. Thank you for agreeing to meet. I didn't respond, keeping my expression neutral. What do you want? Rebecca. She hesitated, her hands fidgeting with the edge of her coffee cup. I wanted to talk about Derek. The mention of her name hit me like a punch to the gut, but I didn't let it show. What about her? She's struggling, Rebecca said. Her voice, soft trace cut back on the money he's giving us. And she's having a hard time finding work. The scandal hasn't helped. She needs support. I stared at her, incredulous. Support? You mean financial support? After everything you've done, she's your daughter, Rebecca said sharply, her mask of vulnerability slipping. Doesn't that mean anything to you? She stopped being my daughter when she chose Ray over me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobin, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My voice cold. She made her choice. Rebecca, just like you did. She's young. Rebecca argued. She didn't understand what she was doing. She understood enough to block me on everything and call me pathetic. I shot back. She understood enough to side with you. And Derek, while you tore apart everything I built, you don't get to play the victim now. Rebecca's expression hardened. I made mistakes. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobin, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. But so did you. Were so focused on your business that you forgot about us. I leaned forward, my voice low and firm. Everything I did was for this family. For Derek, and you threw it away for a man who bought you a champagne and trips to Paris. Don't come to me now asking for help, because Derek decided you weren't worth the investment. Rebecca flinched, but recovered quickly. Derek doesn't deserve to suffer for our mistakes. She's suffering because of your mistakes. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobin, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Not mine for a moment. Neither of us spoke. The noise of the cafe filled the silence between us. A background hum that felt distant and irrelevant. Rebecca stood, smoothing her dress, as she prepared to leave. You'll regret this. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobin, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. She's still your child, no matter what you tell yourself. Goodbye, Rebecca. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobin, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Refusing to give her the satisfaction of a response. As she walked away, I felt a strange sense of closure. Rebecca and Dak had both chosen their path, and now they had to live with the consequences. I couldn't save them from themselves, nor did I want to that night. As I sat alone in the quiet of my home, I thought about what Rebecca had said. Maybe she was right. Derek was still my child, but that didn't mean I could fix the damage she had done. Some lessons had to be learned the hard way. And if Derek ever wanted to come back, it would have to be on my terms, not hers. Weeks passed, and the legal battle officially ended. Wilson delivered the final settlement papers with a satisfied look. She gets what's fair. Tapping the folder. Nothing more. The court sided with you on nearly every point. I flipped through the documents. Rebecca was left with a fraction of the marital assets, enough to cover her immediate expenses. But far from the life she had envisioned with Derek. The joint accounts were closed, and the court formally recognized Derek's financial involvement in the affair. It was as close to a victory as anyone could achieve in a situation like this. But even with the legal ties severed, the emotional weight remained. I had my business, my integrity, and the foundation of a new life. But the betrayal lingered, like a scar that refused to fade one evening. As I reviewed proposals for a mentorship program through my company's foundation, my phone buzzed. The number was unfamiliar. I almost ignored it, but decided against it. Hello. A hesitant voice came through the line. Dad, it was Derek. I leaned back in my chair, my grip tightening on the phone. Derek. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobin, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Evenly. I wasn't expecting to hear from you. I know. There was a pause before she continued, her voice trembling. I wanted to talk. Can we meet? Why? The question came out sharper than I intended, but I didn't care. After everything, I wasn't about to make this easy for her. I need to explain. Please. Dad, just give me a chance. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to refuse to tell her that she'd made her choice and had to live with it. But another part, A quieter part reminded me that she was still my daughter. No matter how deeply she had hurt me, I couldn't ignore her completely. To my agent extraordinaire, Mylan Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My office. Noon. Don't be late. The next day, Derek arrived at my office, looking noticeably different. The polished confidence she had once exuded, replaced by a nervous energy that made her fidget with the strap of her handbag. Her designer clothes looked worn, and there was a hollow in her eyes that hadn't been there before. "Dad," she said, stepping inside. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "Sit," she obeyed, sitting on the edge of the seat, as if she were ready to bolt at any moment. For a few moments, neither of us spoke. I wanted her to feel the weight of the silence, to understand that this wasn't going to be an easy conversation. "You said you wanted to explain," I said finally. "So explain." Derek took a deep breath, her hands gripping the edge of the chair. "I know I hurt you," she began, "and I know what I said was horrible. I was angry and I didn't understand what I was doing. You understood enough to block me," I said to calm me. "Pathetic to side with Derek and your mother, while they tore apart everything I built." Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them away. I was wrong. I thought Alwai was offering us a better life. He made it sound so easy, like we could just skip all the hard work and have everything we wanted. And now I see what it cost us. Her voice break speaking. "Ray's cut us off. Mom's living in a tiny apartment and I can't even get a job because of everything that came out in the press." To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Look at me, like I'm a joke, like I'm nothing. That's what happens when you choose shortcuts over substance. I said you wanted an easy path. Derek, you got it, and now you're paying for it. She flinched, but didn't argue. "I'm trying to fix things. I've been applying for jobs, but no one takes me seriously. They think I'm just some spoiled kid who's never worked for anything. Can you blame them? That's exactly what you were. You rejected everything I tried to teach you about hard work, about earning success, because you thought Ray's money was enough. You thought luxury made you better than everyone else." Derek looked down at her hands, silent for a moment. I thought she might walk out, but then she spoke again. "I want to do better. Quietly, I want to learn the things you tried to teach me before. I get it. Now I didn't then, but I do now." Her words sounded genuine, but I wasn't ready to trust them. "You're saying all the right things." To my agent extraordinaire, Mylan Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. But words don't mean much. "Derek, I need to see action." "What do you mean?" Her voice tinged with desperation. "I mean, you need to prove to me that you've changed." To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. You want to learn about hard work. Start from the bottom. Find a job, any job, and stick with it. Show me that you can commit to something, that you can take responsibility for your choices. She nodded quickly, almost too quickly. "I will. I promise I'm not done." To my agent extraordinaire, Mylan Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Stopping her short. "You're going to cut ties with Alwai completely. No more relying on him for anything. And you're not getting a cent from me until you've proven that you can stand on your own." Derek's face fell, but she nodded again. "Okay. I'll do it good." To my agent extraordinaire, Mylan Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. We'll talk again in 6 months. If you've done what I've asked, we'll revisit this conversation. 6 months. I knew it would feel like an eternity to her, but it was the only way I could be sure she was serious. After Derek left, I sat in my office for a long time, staring out the window. I wanted to believe her, to hope that she could change. But trust was something that had to be earned, just like everything else. That evening, as I locked up and headed home, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was from the Foundation's social media account. A post announcing the success of one of our mentorship programs, featuring a young entrepreneur who had turned a small loan into a thriving business. It reminded me of why I had started the foundation in the first place, to help people who wanted to build something real, something lasting, to give others the opportunities that Rebecca and done away. Maybe Derek could be one of those people. Someday. But for now, I had to focus on the future, on building a legacy that mattered. The next 6 months was some of the longest of my life. I kept myself busy with work, throwing my energy into expanding the Foundation's programs and securing new partnerships for my business publicly. Everything was thriving privately. The wounds from Rebecca and Derek's betrayal still lingered. I thought about Derek, often wondering if she was following through on her promise to change. But I didn't reach out. She had to come to me when, and if she was ready. One evening, as I prepared for a business gala, my assistant brought in an invitation. It was for a charity event, hosted by Derek and his new fiancée. The glossy card felt almost absurd in my hand, a reminder of how far Rebecca and Derek's choices had taken them from reality. Derek was still playing his part, parading his new relationship in front of the same society that had once fawned over Rebecca. I tossed the invitation in the trash and went back to getting ready. The gala was being held at a new venue, downtown, a sleek glass building that reflected the city's lights. As I entered, I was greeted by Ren, my business partner and one of the driving forces behind the Foundation's success. "You're late," she teased, handing me a glass of champagne. I had to decide which I said, philanthropist instead of CEO. I joked. Her laugh was warm, and for a moment, the tension I'd been carrying all day eased. Ren had been instrumental in helping me rebuild. After the divorce, both professionally and personally, she understood the value of hard work and integrity, qualities that seemed increasingly rare as the evening went on. I mingled with donors and supporters, talking about the Foundation's latest achievements. Our mentorship programs were expanding into new cities, and the results had been remarkable. Young entrepreneurs who had once struggled to find opportunities were now thriving, creating businesses that were making a real impact. It was a stark contrast to the world Rebecca and Derek had chosen, a world of borrowed luxury and empty promises. A week later, I received an email from Derek. Subject: update message. "Hi Dad. I wanted to let you know I've started working at a local marketing firm. It's not glamorous, but I'm learning a lot. I also enrolled in an online business course to improve my skills. I know I have a long way to go, but I'm trying. I hope you're doing well." I read the email twice, searching for any hint of manipulation or ulterior motives, but it felt genuine. She was taking steps, small ones, but steps. Nonetheless, I didn't respond immediately. I forwarded the email to Wilson. "Do a background check," I wrote. "I want to verify this." Wilson replied within the hour. "Already on it." The following week, he called with his findings. "She's telling the truth. She's working part-time at a small firm, and she's enrolled in an accredited business course." No signs of financial support from Derek or Rebecca. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe Derek was serious about changing. 3 months later, Derek called me. "Hi, Dad." Her voice hesitant. "I was wondering if we could meet. I want to show you what I've been working on." I agreed, and we arranged to meet at a coffee shop downtown. When I arrived, Derek was already there, sitting at a corner table with a laptop and a stack of papers. She looked different, more grounded, less polished, in the artificial way she had been before. There was an earnestness in her eyes that I hadn't seen in years. "Dad," she said, standing as I approached. "Thanks for coming." I sat down and gestured to the papers. "What all this?" She smiled nervously. "It's my plan. I've been working on a business idea and I wanted to get your opinion." I raised an eyebrow. but nodded for her to continue. She opened her laptop and pulled up a presentation. It's a small-scale marketing agency focused on local businesses. She explained, I've been learning a lot at my job, and I think there's an opportunity to help smaller companies compete with bigger ones. I want to use social media and digital strategy, IES, to give them a platform. As she spoke, I saw flashes of the girl I used to know, the one who was curious. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm, and full of potential. Her plan wasn't perfect, but it was clear. She'd put a lot of thought and effort into it. When she finished, she looked at me expectantly. What do you think? I leaned back in my chair, considering my words carefully. It's a good start. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. But it needs work. Your pricing model is too low and your target audience is too broad. You'll need to narrow your focus and find a niche. She nodded, scribbling notes in a notebook. Okay, that makes sense. Anything else? You'll need funding. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Do you have a plan for that? She hesitated. I was hoping to use my savings, but it's not much. I've been looking into small business loans, but my credit isn't great. I studied her for a moment. I could help. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Finally, but only as an investor. This isn't a handout. Derek, if I invest in this, you'll need to show results. Her eyes lit up. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. You'd do that. Don't get too excited. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I'll need to see a revised business plan first, and I'll expect regular updates on your progress. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. She said quickly, I'll work on it right away over the next few weeks. Derek sent me drafts of her business plan, each one better than the last. She took my feedback, seriously revising her ideas and refining her approach. It wasn't easy for her, but she stuck with it. When she finally presented a polished plan, I agreed to invest a small amount to help her get started. It wasn't much, just enough to cover initial expenses. But it was a test. If she could make it work, I'd consider investing more. A few months later, Derek invited me to her office. It was a small, modest space, but it was hers. She had a handful of clients and was starting to build a reputation for delivering results. As I stood in the office, watching her interact with her team, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: pride. She was finally beginning to understand the value of hard work, the satisfaction that came from building something real. Dad, pulling me aside, I just wanted to say, thank you for believing in me. I know I didn't deserve it, but thank you. I nodded, my voice steady. Keep earning it. Derek's small marketing agency was gaining traction, and as much as I tried to temper my expectations, I couldn't help but feel proud of her progress each time she sent me an update or asked for feedback. I saw glimpses of the daughter. I'd lost a woman, determined to rebuild, not by shortcuts or borrowed glamour, but through her own effort. One evening, she called me with excitement in her voice. Dad, you'll never guess what happened. What's that? Leaning back in my chair, I just signed my first big client. It's a local restaurant chain, and they're giving me a 6-month contract to manage their entire digital presence. That's impressive. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Jean, my pleased. How did you land it? I pitched them a campaign using some strategies I've been testing with smaller clients. She explained, and they loved it. I even negotiated an upfront payment. Her excitement was contagious, and I couldn't help but smile. That's good. Derek, you've come a long way. I couldn't have done it without your help. Her tone softer. Really, Dad. Thank you for giving me another chance. You earned it. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Simply keep proving me right. Despite Derek's progress, Rebecca's absence lingered in the background. After divorce, I hadn't heard much from her occasionally. Wilson would forward updates usually related to her legal troubles or her struggles to maintain a foothold in society. She had moved into a smaller apartment and was reportedly working part-time as an event coordinator for a former friend of Ray's. It was a far cry from the life she had once envisioned. One day, a letter arrived at my office. The envelope was unmarked. The handwriting, familiar. I opened it and found a single page written in Rebecca's neat practice script. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I needed to write this. There's so much I want to say, but I'll keep it simple. I thought I was chasing a better life, but all I found was emptiness. Derek's promises were as hollow as the world he lives in, and I was foolish enough to believe him. I threw away everything we built, and I'll never forgive myself for that. I see now that the life you gave us wasn't boring or small. It was real. You worked so hard to provide for us, and I dismissed it because it didn't shine as brightly as facade. I can't undo the past, but I hope one day you can forgive me. Take care of Derek. She needs you more than she'll admit. Rebecca. I read the letter twice, then folded it neatly and placed it in my desk drawer. Her apology was unexpected, but it didn't erase the years of betrayal or the damage she'd done. Forgiveness wasn't something I could offer easily, nor did I think she truly expected. 8 months later, Derek's marketing agency hit a major milestone. She landed a partnership with a regional retailer, her first multi-location client. She invited me to a small celebration at her office, and when I arrived, I found her beaming with pride. Dad, meet my team. Introducing me to her small but dedicated group of employees. They were young, ambitious and clearly inspired by Derek's leadership. As the evening went on, Derek pulled me aside. I wanted to tell you something. I've been thinking a lot about everything that happened with Mom. With Derek, with you. I waited, letting her gather her thoughts. I know I can't undo the past, she continued, but I want to make things right. I want to prove that I'm not the same person who made those choices. You're already doing that, I said, every day. Her eyes glistened with tears. It means a lot to hear you say that. I didn't think I'd ever earn your trust. Again, I placed a hand on her shoulder. Trust isn't given, Derek. It's built and you're building it one step at a time. Despite Derek's growth, there were moments when the weight of the past resurfaced. One such moment came when I received an invitation to a charity gala, hosted by the foundation. The event would include several high-profile guests, including Ren, who had become an integral part of my life, both professional and personally. As the evening approached, I found myself thinking about Rebecca. She had been part of this world once, though not in the same way. Her presence had always been performative, a means to an end with Ren. There was a sense of authenticity, a shared understanding of what it meant to build something real. At the gala, Ren stood by my side as we greeted guests. Her poise and intelligence drew at admiration, and I felt a deep sense of gratitude for her presence in my life. She had been a steady force during some of my darkest moments, and I couldn't ignore the growing connection between us as the night went on. I spotted Derek among the attendees. She was mingling with donors, confidently discussing her agency and the work she was doing to support local businesses. It was a far cry from the girl who had once dismissed my values as boring. When she caught my eye, she smiled and made her way over. You didn't tell me. Ren would be here, she teased. She's part of the foundation. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Glancing at Wren, who was deep in conversation with another guest, Derek hesitated, then said, "She's good for you, Dad. I can see it. She's been a good partner," I said carefully. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I knew Derek was implying more than that. "Don't overthink it," Derek said with a grin. "Sometimes the best things come when you're not looking for them that night." As I reflected on the gala, I realized how much had changed. Derek was rebuilding her life. Rebecca was finally out of mine. And Wren had become a source of stability and encouragement. The pain of betrayal still lingered, but it no longer defined me. I had found strength in my work, my relationships, and most importantly, in myself. The life I was building now wasn't just a response to the past. It was a declaration of who I wanted to be, and for the first time in a long time, I felt truly at peace over the next few months. Life took on a sense of normality I hadn't experienced in years. My business continued to thrive. The foundation was making a tangible impact. And Derek was steadily proving herself as a capable and driven entrepreneur. I found a quiet satisfaction in seeing her growth, watching her embrace the values I had tried to teach her for so long. But as much as the past felt like a closed chapter, it had a way of creeping back in one afternoon. While reviewing proposals for a new mentorship initiative, I received a call from Wilson. "I thought you'd want to know," he began his tone. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Rebecca's been hospitalized. It seems stress-related. I let out a slow breath, gripping the edge of my desk. How serious? Not life-threatening, but significant enough that she's been advised to take a leave of absence from work. She's been staying with her sister temporarily. Rebecca's sister lived in a modest neighborhood across town. The contrast between that and the life Rebecca had once sought with Derek wasn't lost on me. Thanks for letting me know. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Finally, after the call ended, I sat for a long time, debating whether or not to reach out. I had made her choices, and I had no obligation to involve myself in her life. But she was Derek's mother, and despite everything, there was still a part of me that remembered the woman I had once loved that evening. "Derek, cold dead," she said hesitantly. "Did you hear about Lon?" To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Wilson called me earlier. There was a pause on the other end before she spoke again. "I went to see her today." I wasn't surprised despite their strained relationship. Derek had always had a soft spot for her mother. "How is she? Not great," Derek admitted. "She's different. She's not the same person she was with Derek. It's like she's finally realizing how much she lost." "Do you think she's genuinely changed?" My skepticism clear. "I don't know," Derek said, honestly. "But she's trying. She asked about you." I felt a pang of something. Sympathy maybe. Or nostalgia, but I pushed it aside. "Derek, your mother and I are done. You know that." "I know," she said quickly. "I'm not saying you should forgive her or anything. I just thought you should know." A few weeks later, I found myself driving past Rebecca's sister's house. It wasn't intentional, or at least that's what I told myself. But as I slowed down, I saw Rebecca sitting on the front porch. She looked older, worn down in a way that went beyond age. The spark she used to have, the one that had drawn me to her in the first place, was gone. She didn't see me, and I didn't stop. But the image of her stayed with me. Long after, I drove away. Around the same time, things with Wren began to shift. What had started as a professional partnership had grown into something more. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban, Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Neither of us had explicitly acknowledged it. There was an ease between us, a mutual respect that had been missing from my relationship with Rebecca for years. One evening, after a particularly successful foundation event, Ren and I stayed behind to clean up. The room was quiet, the echoes of laughter and conversation still lingering in the air. You've built something incredible here. Stacking chairs, the foundation, the business, it's all a reflection of who you are. I couldn't have done it without you. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Honestly, she smiled, but there was a seriousness in her eyes. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Do you ever think about starting over building something new? Not just in your career, but personally? Her question caught me off guard, but I knew what she meant. I thought about it. I admitted, but starting over isn't easy. No, it's not. But sometimes it's worth it. The vulnerability in her voice mirrored my own feelings, and for the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to consider the possibility of something more. Not just for my career or my family, but for myself. A few days later, I received a text from Derek. What's to see you? It's important. I stared at the message for a long time, torn between my instinct to ignore it and my curiosity about what Rebecca could possibly have to say. After some deliberation, I agreed to meet her. We arranged to meet at a small cafe, a neutral place where neither of us would feel the weight of our shared history. When I arrived, Rebecca was already there, sitting at a corner table. She looked nervous, her hands wrapped tightly around a mug of coffee. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. When she saw me, thank you for coming. I nodded, sitting down. Across from her, what's this about? Rebecca. She hesitated, her eyes dropping to her coffee. I wanted to apologize, not in a letter this time, but face to face. I didn't respond, waiting for her to continue. I know I can't undo what I did, but I need you to know that. I see now how selfish I was, how blind I was to everything you gave me. I threw away the life we built together for something that was never real. Why? Now, I asked, why say all this after everything? Because I've lost everything, she said quietly. And in losing it, I finally understand what I had. I don't expect you to forgive me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I needed to tell you her words were sincere, but they didn't erase the pain she had caused. Rebecca, I've moved on. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I'm building something new, something better. I'm glad you're taking responsibility for your choices, but I can't be part of your life anymore. She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. I understand. I just hope someday you can remember the good parts of what we had. I stood, feeling a sense of closure I hadn't realized I needed. Take care of yourself, Rebecca. As I walked away, I felt lighter, as if I had finally closed the door on that chapter of my life. Back at my office, I found Ren waiting for me. She had a proposal in her hand, a new initiative for the foundation, but when she saw the look on my face, she set it aside. Everything. Okay. Better than okay. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Sitting beside her, I think I finally let go of the past. She smiled, placing a hand on mine. That's a big step. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Squeezing her hand gently, and I think I'm ready to take another one. The weeks that followed brought a sense of peace I hadn't known in years with Rebecca's chapter finally closed. I could focus fully on the present and the future. Derek continued to impress me with her determination, steadily growing her business, and finding her footing as an independent adult. She still sought my advice occasionally, but now was out of respect, not reliance. One day she called with unexpected news that I'm hosting a client appreciation dinner at my office. Her voice bubbling with excitement. I'd really like you to come me. Surprised. What for you my inspiration? Simply. And I think it would mean a lot to my team, to meet the person who helped me get here. Her words hit me harder than I expected for so long. I had worried I'd lost her forever. Hearing her say that was more than I could have hoped for. I'll be there. I promised the dinner was a modest affair. Nothing like the lavish galas Erin had once demanded. Derek's office was decorated with simple, thoughtful touches, and her small team greeted me warmly as I mingled with her clients and employees. I saw firsthand how much she had grown. She wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. Derek stood up to give a short speech. Midway through the evening, she thanked her team, her clients, and finally, me. My dad taught me the value of hard work and integrity. Her voice, I didn't appreciate it at first, but now I understand what he was trying to show me. This business wouldn't exist without his example. The room applauded, and as she sat down, she glanced at me with a small, genuine smile. It was a moment I would treasure forever. As my relationship with Derek continued to heal, my connection with Ren deepened. What had started as mutual respect had grown into something neither of us had planned for, but both of us welcomed. She understood my past without judgment, and her unwavering support gave me the confidence to look ahead. One evening we attended a fundraiser together. It was a formal event, the kind of thing I used to dread when I was married to Rebecca, but with Ren by my side, it felt different, authentic. During a quiet moment on the balcony, Ren turned to me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Noben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. She began, her tone uncharacteristically hesitant. Have you thought about what comes next for us? I met her gaze, seeing the vulnerability in her expression. I have. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Noben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. And I want this, whatever we're building together, to be part of my future. Her smile was soft, but radiant me too. It wasn't a grand declaration or a dramatic moment. It was simple. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Noben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. And exactly what I needed. Months later, Derek invited me to a ribbon ceremony for her first official office space. She had outgrown her initial location and was moving into a larger, more professional setup. As I walked through the doors, I couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. The ceremony was small, but meaningful. Derek gave a speech, thanking her clients, her team, and once again, me, everything I've built. It's because I finally listened to the lessons my dad tried to teach me. It's taken me a while, but I understand now. Real success isn't about shortcuts or appearances. It's about building something real, something lasting. As she cut the ribbon and the room cheered, I realized how far we had come. Not just Derek, but both of us. Rebecca remained a distant presence in my life. Derek visited her occasionally and gave me updates, but I kept my distance. She seemed to have accepted her new reality, working quietly, to support herself and staying out of the spotlight. She had once craved. I wished her well, but didn't dwell on what could have been. That chapter was closed. Ren, on the other hand, became a cornerstone of my life. Our partnership, both professional and personal, brought a balance I hadn't realized I needed together. We expanded the foundation, creating new programs and initiatives that had a tangible impact on the community. One evening, as Ren and I sat on my back porch, Watching the sunset, she turned to me with a thoughtful expression. You've rebuilt so much. Your business, your foundation, your relationship with me. What's next? I thought about her question, letting it settle next. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing and patient enthusiasm. It's about continuing to build, not just for myself, but for the people who matter, and who matters most to you. Her tone light, but her eyes serious. I looked at her, the woman who had stood by me through my rebuilding at the house, that now felt more like a home than it ever had before. You do. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Simply, you Derek in the future. We're creating. Her smile was all the answer I needed. The years ahead weren't without challenges, but they were filled with purpose. Derek's business flourished, and she continued to grow into a confident, capable woman. The foundation expanded, helping countless young entrepreneurs achieve their dreams. And Ren and I built a life together, one grounded in mutual respect, love and the hard-earned lesson of the past. Looking back, I realized the betrayals I had faced hadn't defined me. They had tested me, shaped me, and ultimately strengthened me. And as I stood at the center of the life I had built, surrounded by the people who mattered most, I knew I had found something real, something lasting. I had found peace. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Leave a comment below to share your thoughts on what happened.